afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and a very warm welcome to SCMP Parents Talk, Principles, Vision and Action series, which is presented by HSBC Premier Principals Connect. My name is Karen Koh, and I'm delighted to be both your host and your moderator today. And it's great to see so many of you here today, and some children, because that's what it's all about, so thank you for coming. And if you joined us at our previous session in December, it's wonderful to see you again. But if this is your first time at SCMP Parents Talk, we're very pleased for you to join us and to be part of this conversation this afternoon. So last time, our discussion was very lively and very practical, and we're looking forward to continuing that this afternoon. To start us off, I'm delighted to invite Ms. Ange Jin, Chief Growth Officer of the South China Morning Post, to the stage to share a few opening remarks. So Ange leads SCMP's Education Business Unit and has been instrumental in creating meaningful platforms with parents, educators, and the wider community to get involved in conversations that really matter. So, Ange.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, everyone. It is wonderful to welcome all of you to the SCMP Parents Talk, organized by SCMP Learn. As part of the South China Morning Post family, SCMP Learn builds on more than 75 years of history serving Hong Kong and mainland China. For generations, our award-winning publications and the trusted educational resources have been a companion in classrooms across the city, shaping the critical thinking, nurturing curiosity, and supporting young people as they find their voice. It is the same commitment to quality, credibility, and care that has made us a trusted partner for teachers, students, and of course, parents. Amid a landscape of constant change and competing pressures, parents can often feel like charting a course through unfamiliar waters, with no single map to follow. Here at SCMP Learn, our mission is to support you through this journey. We want to provide guidance and foster a community where you feel supported and connected as you help your children thrive. With this goal in mind, we launched SCMP Parents Talk 2 years ago, and it is a platform designed for parents to hear from the leading educators, asking pressing questions, and discover practical strategies to support learning and personal growth at home. As Karen just mentioned, today marks the second event in our Principles, Vision and Action series. Our first session sparked a rich and lively conversations covering everything from the lasting impact of the COVID era on student learning to the promise and the challenges of AI in classroom and the unique benefits of schooling right here in Hong Kong. Those discussions were a powerful reminder of just how complex and rapidly evolving the educational landscape has become. Today, we continue that exploration with a fresh perspective and an exceptional opportunity. We are thrilled to hear directly from one of the Hong Kong's most well-respected educators, Mr. Ronnie Cheng, Headmaster of DBS, a school renowned not just for academic excellence, but also for its strong core values and holistic approach to education. This afternoon, we are privileged to gain a window into how Mr. Cheng inspires his teachers, guides his students, and fosters a community where young people truly flourish. For parents, it is an invaluable opportunity to understand the principles behind a high-performing school environment and to gather expert insights we can apply to support our own children both at home and in the wider world. Before we kickstart our conversation with Headmaster Cheng, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to our presenting sponsor, HSBC Premier, for the continuous support in making this series possible and their continued efforts to support ecosystems of education in Hong Kong. And finally, a huge thank you to all of you for taking the time at the weekends to join us here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ange, for that very warm welcome. So now let's hear from our presenting sponsor, and we welcome Ms. Regina Young, Director and Head of Premier and Partnerships at HSBC Hong Kong. Regina brings over 20 years of leadership experience across banking and fast-moving consumer goods, and she's deeply committed to using innovation and technology to create meaningful experiences for clients like you. So Regina, please come to the stage. Please give her a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of HSBC Premier, I warmly welcome you to today's event. And it's wonderful to see so many people here joining us today. And thank you for spending time with us on Saturday. So your strong turnout reflects how much you care about your children's future. And we truly appreciate it. And that's why we upgrade today's session to Ritz-Carlton, giving you a more comfortable Premier experience. Today is about supporting parents at every stage of their education journey by connecting you with leading schools and practical insights. After last year's successful launch with international schools, we are pleased to introduce a brand new season of the HSBC Premier Principals Connect series. As part of this program, we are partnering with South China Morning Post to host parents' talks and bring principals from renowned schools in Hong Kong, and you are joining us for the first episode of the year. We are honored to welcome Mr. Ronnie Cheng, Headmaster of DBS. Mr. Cheng is a distinguished education leader reflected in the school's outstanding achievements across academics, music, and sports. More importantly, Mr. Cheng is committed to helping students excel in every aspect of life. This afternoon, he will share practical tips and inspiring stories to support your child's growth. Events like today are just one way we help you to assess ideas and support your child's growth and aspirations. With HSBC Premier, you can tap into a full range of education solutions, including the Premier Chief Education Officer Service with one-to-one education consultancy, the Premier Academy Program, featuring global school tours and career exploration, and our Premier Global Education Summit, bringing together international schools in Hong Kong and top universities from the UK. At HSBC Premier, we are proud to be your partner along this journey. We do more than banking. We are committed to enhancing every aspect of your life with education support, health and wellness benefits, and lifestyle privileges. More exclusive talks and events are coming throughout the year, so please stay connected. And now, please enjoy this fireside chat and take away some great ideas for your child's next step. So thank you again for being here. Thank you so much.
Regina, can I ask you to come back to the stage, please? We're going to take a group photo, and I'd like to invite Ange Jin back and also Headmaster Ronnie Cheng for a quick photo. So we'll just come forward a little bit. Yes. Oh, and step to the left. Thank you. Okay, and let's just with the three of you. Excellent. Thank you, Ange and Regina. You may take a seat, and I'm going to ask Headmaster Cheng to stay here with me for a minute. We're going to bring some chairs up onto the stage, and we just would like to get to know you in the audience a little bit. So obviously you have sons, otherwise you wouldn't be here. By a show of hands, whose boys are under 5 years old? A lot of noise and energy in your home, yes? Who has boys between 5 and 10? Some of the same hands, right? And anyone has teenage boys? Oh gosh, I feel sorry for you. I've been there, I know. I have 3 sons too, and they're all adults now. I survived, they survived, and they're all amazingly fully functional human beings. So there is hope, don't worry. Why don't we take a seat, Ronnie? Okay, so now that we've established what your families are like, I'm going to introduce our distinguished speaker, not that he needs too much of an introduction, Mr. Ronnie Cheng, Headmaster of Diocesan Boys School. So just a very brief formal intro, Ronnie, I hope you don't mind. Headmaster Cheng has been at the helm of DBS, which we know is one of Hong Kong's most prestigious schools, for over 10 years. And in addition to his wonderful career as an educator, he's also a talented musician and an athlete. And he currently serves as the chairman of the Hong Kong Schools Music and Speech Association. And he's the vice president of the Hong Kong Tennis Association and manager of Team Hong Kong. So can we give him a round of applause for all those other things as well? Before we start, I do want to remind you, if you have questions, please do scan the QR code, which will take you to Slido, and you can enter your questions there. So, Ronnie, I want to start by saying, first of all, you are a DBS alumnus. You went to school there,
Yes,
right?
I am. I'm an old boy of the school.
You're an old boy, and then you taught there,
I taught there.
and now you're the headmaster.
Yes.
What is so special about DBS that you actually wanted to go back and continue a career there?
Well, first of all, I need to say I really love my school with everything I have, but we're not a perfect place. And it's a place where we try to provide the environment and the fertile soil for the students, the teachers, and everybody in the community, opportunities to thrive, to experiment, maybe even sometimes to fail, and then to pick themselves up again. And we want to continue to enrich this culture and perpetuate this culture. But how about this? Before we continue with this heavy and very serious subject for ourselves and for all of you, can we start by doing a small exercise? Please hold an imaginary cup. Maybe it's your favorite mug, or if you drink alcohol, maybe hold it like this. If you're left-hander, please hold it like this. And then imagine that it's filled with your favorite drink. So hold your mug and then pull it close to your nose. Take a whiff. See if you can smell it. Mine is a hot Americano, so I can smell the coffee. How about yours, Karen?
Mine is a passion fruit soda.
Oh, nice. Okay, take a whiff. Hold it for a second or two, and then perhaps think about your current state, maybe your emotional state or where you're at. Perhaps you feel a little bit tired from the week. Perhaps you're very happy because your son won a match this morning, or maybe you're a little bit agitated because the traffic was not too good. So just take a few seconds to think about your current state, and then if you don't mind, take a whiff, and then share with your neighbor. Just take 5 seconds, if you don't mind. Share with them, what you're feeling right now. So. How about yourself?
I'm feeling very relaxed and great. Energized. How about you, Ronnie?
Great. I'm feeling blessed to be able to meet with so many parents and friends here on a Saturday afternoon. I just want to thank you all for taking the time to come out here to have this gathering.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Ronnie, for opening with such a nice activity. Now, if we talk about DBS, it's such a famous, you could say, brand name school, known as being very prestigious, as producing incredible students who go on to be leaders in so many fields.
Including HSBC, I think.
Exactly. When you think about your school's culture, and if you had to distill it into 3 words, what would it be?
Yeah, I think slightly more than 3 words, maybe.
Okay, I'll let you have more than 3 words.
I think the first word would be openness and the freedom, and then empowerment, And then the third would be embracing dichotomies, just embracing certain things that seem opposite in the beginning.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the openness and the trusting environment, I feel, is essential for boys. I see that many of you have sons here, and at least you've been teenagers before. I think boys, also girls, they need an environment where they're trusted to experiment, there's an openness there for them to be exposed to different types, different topics. They can think critically, interact actively with their peers and also with the teachers, with the extended community. They need that to experience for themselves, discuss with their friends and peers, and learn in different ways. By embracing dichotomies, I mean that sometimes you have to embrace things that seem a little bit contradictory or opposite. For example, we spoke about freedom, but freedom comes with certain responsibility. And so, yes, we give you the soil to initiate your own projects, to develop your own projects with your friends, but there's also a requirement there that you need to be responsible for what you do. So an example would be, I think you're all familiar with TED Talks. Right? So our boys organize TED Talks every couple of years. It's TEDx DBS. And in the beginning, they only know that, there's this goal that we want to achieve. Okay, let's organize this. But they don't know any of the steps going forward. So there's a little bit more monitoring from the teachers. But as they go through this cycle more and more, they know, these are the logistical concerns, these are the administrative concerns. This is how we prep the speakers. And so, they have the freedom to explore and initiate their own projects. And with some guidance, we require them to have that responsibility. And so we also want them to develop their own individual gifts. I think many of you as parents, you want to be able to develop your sons and daughters' gifts. And so a lot of times you're very focused on the child. And so yes, we want to develop individual gifts, but yet at the same time, we want them to be very aware of the collective, the greater good, that their gifts can contribute to the greater community and make it a richer, a more vibrant place.
I think that's really important, that you have that sense of community, and if you can foster that in a school, then those students, when they grow up, they understand how to work in a community or live in a community.
Yes, and then you perpetuate this cycle. And one of the things that we're so grateful for is that the alumni, well, it's a blessing and a curse, because they never feel that they'll ever graduate from the school. They always come back, and sometimes they come back to the school even more than when they were students here. And they come back, they train them they give back in all sorts of ways. They train them in interview skills, they give them internship opportunities, sometimes they hire them, and then they give them professional insights and training. And so when you give to the bigger self actually enriches you in return. And so this is a culture that we'd like to perpetuate and foster.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, I mentioned that you've been headmaster since 2012.
2012.
A lot of things have changed in the world since
and Hong Kong.
2012, and in education, of course. How have those, whether it's global shifts or local shifts or shifts in education, affected or shaped the learning environment at DBS?
We've had to, along with all the schools, we've had to adapt. Right? In the tumultuous times, how to embrace the entire community, hold them close together. During COVID, how do we adapt quickly so that they don't lose the sense of community? I think for many of you who are parents, you understand and you recall how we've lost 3 or 4 precious years of community. And so during COVID time, how do we adapt quickly to work with the kids, even online, and maintaining that individual and collective sense of strengthening. And then, of course, world events, technology, they've all changed. And so we've had to adapt. But I feel, and we're all working towards this, is that we hope that our core values don't change. I'm not sure if you are aware of this. We started out 155 years ago as an orphanage, so that the DNA of taking care of each other hasn't left us. And of course, many of our students graduated from the school, and so there's an upward spiral, and help them to gain success in life. But I think all the way from our chairman, the bishop, through the teachers, the old boys, we all come back and we know that we need to keep this going. We need to keep the core value going. Look out for the weaker ones. Strengthen this brotherhood and bring everybody along.
Now, you mentioned the more than 3 words, but
yes.
the framework of your school culture, and then of course core values. So how does that filter down into the classroom? How do you either communicate that so that teachers know what to do?
Yes.
They're they're actually demonstrating and teaching those things at the classroom level.
Oh yes. At our school, in the secondary division, we have about 140 teachers. And then in the primary school, we have 80-some, 90 teachers. So one thing we believe quite firmly is that I think you can relate to this as parents and probably as employers, is that we look for teachers who have a certain sense of openness, a certain sense of self-initiative, and a certain sense of empathy. We feel that we can't hire teachers or bring in teachers who wait for instructions, because if you have to tell them each step how to do it, it would be too late. So we look for teachers not just with the subject know-how, but also certain qualities that they can relate with the students. So when they reach the final round, when I sit there and talk to them, we don't talk so much about subject matter, but I try to observe what kind of person they are. And then we have different types of students. We have the scholars, we have those who are not as academically strong, but they're gifted in other areas. And so we try to think whether this person, this teacher, this coach, or this tutor can come in and develop a good rapport with the students. In Chinese, of course, we have this saying that about 亦師亦友, being a mentor and a friend to the students. And it's actually a struggle every day. You've had 3 sons. You have 3 sons.
I have 3 sons.
I have 1,400 boys downstairs. You have more than 1 kid. It's a constant tension. And so, but in a way, it's good if you can feel this tension, because there's no magic bullet, as you started out saying. And it's always a slight tension there to know when to be firmer, when to be the mentor, when to be the friend, when to be the authoritarian disciplinarian, when to be the encourager. And so it's a science and an art. And so it's a daily struggle that would benefit both the child and the educator.
Yeah, exactly. And how would you measure success when it comes to bringing this vision to life? Because of course you could measure grades, or you could measure,
Yes.
How well the school is doing compared to other schools in Hong Kong. But to you, what are the important measures of success?
Yes, I have to admit, we are a competitive school. Sometimes we call ourselves Sparta. We are a warrior nation. We like to think about going to war, to combat, in terms of, competitions. And I understand that, parents, especially in Hong Kong or in this region, they're under a lot of pressure. They feel that they cannot miss a single step because, once you know that you're pregnant, you need to start thinking about PN. And then you have PN, you need to start thinking about kindergarten, and then primary school, and then senior high, which leads to the right secondary school, right? And so parents feel that they cannot miss a single step. And so they're very focused on, fighting for everything for their child. And that's tremendous pressure. But what was the question again?
How do you measure success?
Yes, okay. So I wouldn't discount academic success. I wouldn't discount every single grade because it matters. But I think I've also been around long enough to have, taught some of the parents and older. And you can see that from a young age to their adolescent years to their adult years, you know that short-term success, yes, it's important, but we need to differentiate between goal and purpose. And I think as educators and parents, we need to help our children find purpose, the purpose in life. And so when you think about not making mistakes, we also need to think about what success means. I know in Hong Kong, maybe it's getting into a famous school, maybe an international school, maybe a local school, maybe Oxbridge, maybe the Ivies. But we need to think beyond that. If you don't make it there, does that mean that you're a failure? If you make it there, does that mean that you're successful? We need to think beyond that. So the short-term goal is important. We try to help them as much as we can. But let's measure them in terms of, how they navigate through life, how they go through life as a true human being. I think that's also very important.
Yeah. Can you speak to us a bit more about failure? Because everybody fails at some point in life, and it's often stigmatized and shameful. Don't talk about you failed, don't tell anybody. Really, for you as an educator, why is failure important?
Yeah, we often think about success, and I think as parents, we feel that we need to, bring every success to the child. But honestly, from experience and from what we can observe in our community, is that it is probably good for the student to be able to experience some form of failure early in life, so they can learn about grit and resilience. I know in recent years we talk about well-being a lot, and that's very, very important. But it's also very important that we hold them up when they fall, but we also hope that they can develop the grit and resilience and the adaptability to adjust and stand up again. And so we talk about, you either win or you learn, right? So our school is very competitive. Our boys are very competitive. So they compete not to lose and they compete to win. But of course, everybody loses from time to time. And if you think in beta mode, then you're always trying to improve. You always improve 1 or 2% per day. And I think that's vital in terms of your skill and also in terms of how you relate to people, how you work with a team. That's also very important.
Speaking of teams, you, of course, you're the tennis, were you coaching the tennis or you played tennis?
I tried to play.
You've tried to play tennis. But
not as good as Coleman.
You definitely also did choir as a coach, right? A choir master. And DBS does have a lot of talented students in music, in sports, in arts. You're definitely living proof of that. How do you help students balance? So these are often passions, and they can be demanding if they want to perform well in those. And how do you help them balance those with the demands of academic performance as well?
Okay. First of all, perhaps I can tie in this question with the question right before about success. Indeed, I still, besides working at the school, I still conduct a couple of choirs. And most of these students I've taught and have worked with since they were maybe 11 or 12 years old. And some of them are now in their 20s and hundreds of months, maybe. But you can see them maturing through their teenage years, through college, and some of them who have their own careers now. And so when they were students, success means that they compete in the music competitions and they win. But success in the long run is that they develop lifelong friendships with these choir mates. They learn deep level listening, not just to themselves, but to each other and to the composer and to the score, and how to make things better together. And these things translate very directly into success in life. Besides the precious friendships that they develop, it also helps you with whatever you do, right? And so I think for parents, academic success is very, very important, but please don't feel that extracurricular activities or co-curricular activities are secondary, because I think many of you have probably experienced this. You learn just as much, if not more, outside of the classroom than inside the classroom. And so some of the things I just mentioned, in the arts or in music, you learn a deeper level of perception, of listening deeply, right? Of working with each other, listening to each other. In sports, you learn about resilience. You learn about fighting through adversity. In the science, in the robotics, you learn about putting components together, creating something that would help each other and perhaps even benefit the community. And so these are the things you learn outside of the classroom, or perhaps you can redefine where classroom is. That's one thing we talk about. Where's the classroom? Is it the, 300 meter cubicle that you go into daily, or you learn at every moment that you can, or that's available to you?
Yeah. Just a follow-up question on that, Ronnie, because in Hong Kong, traditionally, parents love their kids to take music or be on a sports team, preferably not contact sports. Tennis, you're far away from your opponent. Swimming, you don't crash into anyone. Yeah. But they kind of like them as resume fillers, as it looks good on your resume for college if you played a sport or you were in the choir or a band. Yeah. Has that changed? Do you see more parents going, well, actually, my son could be like Coleman Wong, one of your alumni, a world-class tennis player, and I'd be happy to support that? Or is it still mostly, no, you've got to go be a lawyer or a banker or a doctor?
Yeah, I think parents these days are much more open-minded. And especially if you're a lawyer and a banker, you know the threat of AI, right? And you know how fast the world is changing. Your neighbor's just been laid off. And so there's no guarantee for success now, right? Asian parents still want their kids to be doctors. We know that. But even in the medical profession, there are still many things that you can pursue, right? Medical research, different types of therapies. And also, I think parents are much more open to, perhaps the sports, the sciences, music. You spoke about music. Aristo, one of our alums, he just performed at the arts festivals. He started out as a very talented young player, but also an accompanist of the mixed choir. And so, he worked in the community. He had a lot of fun, and then I think he actually didn't major in music. I think he studied economics. Of course, Coleman went full-time, but Coleman's teammates, some of them DBS boys, will stay on as professional players, but some of them will continue pursue other professions. But what they learn in arts and in sports, the way they adapt to different situations, I think that the adaptability, the resilience translates very well to life.
Yeah, and the leadership skills too.
Leadership skills, definitely, yes.
Now, I want to move on to how you see what's happening in the community and in education. So how do you see the future of education evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, both at DBS and in Hong Kong more generally?
Yeah. I think we all come in with two alphabets, right? AI. And we're no exception. At the school, we're also learning how to adapt. And so I think two things very important. Students, you don't have to worry about it. They'll pick it up much faster than we will. And so we need to equip the teachers, but thankfully, our teachers are quite open-minded. They're keen to learn. And so we've been equipping them. And also, but on the other side, we need to teach our young people how to ethically utilize these tools. And we need to understand that at the end of the day, these are tools. There are certain things that still cannot be replaced. The critical mind, your ability to empathize authentically and genuinely, working with each other, these things are also very important. So yes, we are using these tools. We try to design through AI, teaching materials that would work well with our students, so lessons can be more lively. We we utilize AI to help formulate good questions, tutoring questions, tutoring sessions. We plan the schedule, give different types of inputs. These things we're utilizing in primary school and also secondary school. But we remind ourselves not to be too FOMO about it. You understand the term, right? Fear of missing out. Don't be too FOMO about it. Just, I think gradually, steadily, they will be able to utilize it in an ethical way and in an intelligent way. And so we continue this journey together to try to make learning more lively and more interesting for our students.
And of course, the young children now, like the children who are in this room, they're going to be our first AI natives. You know, the generation above, Gen Alpha, I guess, was digital natives. But these kids are actually AI natives. And in a way, you know, some of them may be more advanced than their teachers using AI.
They learn much quicker than
right.
we do,
So,
for sure.
And how do you think that also affects not just their classroom learning, but socialization and the way they interact with other people?
Yeah, that's why just now we mentioned that it is a tool. We need to, you know, appropriately move them out of the screen, because I think you still remember because of the COVID years and because of AI, we need to get the students away from the screen as much as we can so that they can learn to interact with each other. I think there's still something irreplaceable about human connection, about working together and supporting each other. And so that's something we try to continue to do.
Now, looking forward, what sort of challenges, apart from AI, do you see students facing in the future, and what sort of skills or qualities will be really important for them to meet those challenges?
I think besides AI, well, at least for Hong Kong, a lot of the situation is still dictated by exams, right? And so the challenge would be to help them, equip them to overcome these short-term challenges, and then also equip them for the long term. And there's a tension there in terms of time utilization. But our goal, if you use now not 3 words, but 2 words to crystallize what the school is about or what we're committed to doing, is perhaps those 2 words would be all-round excellence. So you need that all-roundedness, meaning not just skills, not just knowledge, but you have the values and the moral fortitude and the compass to help you navigate through life. But you also need that sense of excellence to understand what it means to give 120%, and when you reach there, what does that mean, right? You need to do that. You need to have that experience, whether through sports, whether through arts, whether through academics. And so we feel that reaching that level of excellence is important. That's what sets you apart. And so we need to empower that. But the all-roundedness is also essential, I feel.
What other trends or changes in education do you think are really important for parents to understand?
Sorts of trends.
Yeah.
I think I see many parents here who have 5-6-year-olds. I think one of their questions is whether to send their kids to international schools or local schools or different types of schools. I think it's important for the parents to find the right environment for them. And I hope that parents would not just stigmatize or just label these schools as one type or the other. Because I think most schools are trying their best to adapt, to incorporate different approaches to enrich the student life. And so challenges comes locally and internationally. And so I feel in the past, the pathway would be, okay, you go through primary school, secondary school, and then you think about going to university. Well, maybe before university, you think about boarding school in the UK or the US, and then university in the States or in the UK. So now we need to think about in terms of the global trends, what's happening in the world and what we have here in Hong Kong, and then you decide, maybe reverse engineer a little bit. Is Hong Kong a good place to bring up my child? And then would I want to send him or her out when he or she is 12, 13 years old, or whether to stay home in their formative years to be close to the parents? Because I feel that there's nothing that can replace that. So.
Yeah, that's definitely something that people struggle with.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that Hong Kong, even with all its intense competition, is not a bad place to bring up a child. From my experience, either in sports and music, which, even in academics, which took me all around the world, I noticed that there are very few places that can truly embrace the culture of the East and the West. We've been to many seminars, exhibitions, competitions. There are very few places that we find pockets of people who have a genuine understanding of what it means to be Asian, but also have a very deep understanding of Western culture. It's very hard for me to find another place outside of Hong Kong for a person or a unit to be genuinely, to have a genuine, firm grasp of what it means.
Yeah, I agree. I think from my own personal experience, my kids who live now in New York and LA feel at home anywhere in the world. I think because they had such an international upbringing and their friends came from all over the world. So they were very adaptable, and they always say, oh, we're so grateful that we grew up in Hong Kong. Yeah. And I'm sure you find that with your alumni as well, that they can go on to have great careers anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, different types of professions.
Now, when you are here with parents who are interested, obviously, in getting their kids into a school like yours, what should they be thinking about, and what questions should they be asking, and what other research should they be doing?
Well, first of all, thank you if you're interested in applying to the Diocesan Boys School, secondary division or the primary division. We'd love to see you and hear from you. But I think one thing you already did right is to come to this talk. I feel that, don't just listen to how other people describe schools. There are so many good schools in Hong Kong, and there are so many good educators. I mean, I love my school, I love my teachers and my students, but I would say that there are many very strong schools and good educators that will fit your child's learning style. At DBS, we have the IB and also the local curriculum. We're also exploring because of the EDB's recent policy, we're also exploring other methods to help our students to learn, students who have different types of learning styles. And so I think one thing you can do is to talk to the educators, talk to the teachers, maybe visit the campus, talk to their alumni, and see for yourself whether the institution really suits your child or not. People usually have some preconceptions about certain schools, including DBS and school, but I think you know your children best, and just go and see for yourself and see if this particular place fits your child.
Ronnie, what do you think would be the most common misperceptions that people would have about DBS?
About DBS?
Yeah.
I think, well, especially we call this month March Madness. I think perhaps people think that DBS boys are always very, very competitive. And I feel that in a way it's true. Our boys are quite competitive. They like to compete, whether in music, in sports, robotics, in Olympiads, and in academics. But for teenage boys, it's a landmark for them. It's a tangible goal for them. And so we don't discourage them from competition per se. It's how you define the competition, right? So we try to equip them as much as they can, how to handle adversity, how to strategize, how to handle different types of opponents in different environments. But because teenagers, it's harder for them to think, the very long term. And so it's good for them to have short-term goals. But that doesn't mean that, you must win. We're going to give you a really hard time if you lose. But we try to be there for them in success and in failure. And so maybe because they don't say that to my face, so I'm just guessing. Yeah.
And what about I guess you'd say maybe personality trait that would be a good fit? Is, in order to do well at DBS, do you have to be extroverted and, really be willing to put yourself out there? Or is there room for the quieter boys?
Oh, yes, that's an excellent question. Especially, I think sometimes the parents will tell me, my son is really active, outgoing, then he must suit DBS. He's more, this boy is more contemplative, more quiet. Maybe he should go to this school. But I would say that if your son is introverted and extroverted, take a look a little bit deeper. Even if he or she is introverted, there might be other qualities. Maybe he or she is innately quite curious about things. It's just the way they express their personalities differently. A lot of people think that DBS boys are all very outgoing and active, and I have to say I'm an ultra introvert.
Oh, really?
And so that's why I think God has a sense of humor. He puts an ultra introvert in a very pretty active environment. And so, when I was a teacher, after facing students for the entire day, I need time. I would just maybe sit in a cha chan tang and just drink my coffee and my milk tea and just cool off a little bit. And even now, after a big social event or a big school event, I need a few hours to quiet down. I know the chairman of our school council is also like that. He's a bishop and preacher, but he's also an introvert. And so I think everybody needs their cave time. And so perhaps look beyond that. So which ties in with our previous question about having a preconceived idea about an institution. Maybe really see for yourself, that environment, whether it really suits your sons or daughters.
Yeah. In terms of getting down to very practical things, what is the admissions process like at DBS, and how do you decide on who to accept and who not to?
Yes.
This is the burning question everybody wants.
Okay, so timeline-wise, September is the stressful time for Hong Kong parents. So you go to all these admissions talks, and then you immediately apply to these schools. And then today you're in Stanley, tomorrow you're on Kennedy Road, and then you're in Mong Kok, and then maybe Tai Tam somewhere. And so, have I mentioned all the schools that you're considering? And then I think the parents are also under a lot of pressure about entering these tutoring classes who claim to have special insights to the schools. And so you take these lessons way before that, and then in October you have the first round interviews, and you hope that you pray very hard that you get into the second round and maybe beyond. And so this is the timeline. But I want to at least tell you that for our school, we don't really look at the portfolio that much. We only have that section there because parents ask for it. So we know that your children are 5 years old, okay? They're not 50 years old, okay? So they don't have to travel the world. They don't have to have met the Pope and done all these things. So we limit it to these many pages. And then please also, I know you don't want to make you don't want to take any wrong steps, right? So you go to these tutoring sessions. I cannot stop you from going to these tutoring sessions. But I know our teachers, they try to change up all the time, change up the questions. And they also try to look at different aspects of your, not just your knowledge, but your personality. And also sometimes parents' dynamics. And so these things cannot be. Some of these things cannot be coached, right? Some has to be natural, or you coach them to be natural.
Okay, I'm going to move to questions from the audience. We have a lot of very good questions here. Maybe I'll start with the latest one, which is kind of related to applications. And it's with so many high-achieving applicants, even at 5 years old, what can parents do to help their child's application stand out to an admissions committee?
Perhaps I can start with the interview process. I mentioned about introverts and extroverts, but I also need to mention that there's a time constraint there, right? And so most of the time there are questions that are, closed-ended and also open-ended questions. I think the key would be encourage your child to express himself or herself genuinely, and then at least give the answer first, communicate with the examiners, and then let the examiners decide.
In that process, Ronnie, just out of curiosity, is the child on their own with the examiner or the parents in the room?
For us?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. For us, it's the child. For the first round, it's just the child. And then for the second round, it's the child first, and then the parents. Okay, so wives, please be nice to your husbands. Usually it's this way. The reason I say this is that most of the time, the wives would, I'm not stereotyping here, just from some experience, they would be very, very nervous about it. And then, I've seen, wives slapping their husbands outside. 點解你頭先唔係咁樣講㗎？點解你咁樣? Please don't feel that you have to be very professional or very knowledgeable or a certain way. I think most of the time, for our school and for many schools, they just want to have a feel of the family dynamics, right? And also, please don't feel like you need to say something very ethereal, very, very, very sophisticated. Profound. Yeah. Oh, I take my son to, to talk about to go to Gugong and Museum Palace, and we talk about Egyptian history. And if it's the case, great, because then we asked the kid. He said, "Oh, well, my dad watches TV," and so I think we just want to see an authentic picture, a genuine picture of the family dynamics.
Right. So really the advice is be real, be yourself.
Yes,
right?
Be yourself. And don't feel that you have to speaking a lot or speaking less or speaking in any way affects it. I think just let your genuine self come out.
I think it's obviously very stressful for the parents to go through this too.
Understand. Yeah. Feel for you.
Yes. Okay, so here's a few other different questions. So one of our audience says, what's the real difference between a top local school and a top international school in terms of child development?
Well, DBS is heavy into competition, right? But we're not here to compete with other schools. And so perhaps I can leave this homework for you to find out, okay? How good is HKIS? How good is CIS, ISF, and how it compares to DBS? But I will share with you. Last night I had a chat with the principal of our sister school, our sister primary school, and we're saying, labeling a school international school or local school has its virtue, but they're no longer many schools are not your stereotypical international schools or local schools anymore. As you probably know that a lot of the international schools, they're actually really, really academic now. If you see them as more open or do your thing, but now the language requirement is very strong. The academic rigor is high, and then many local schools are quite internationalized. And so I think back to that thing about really visiting the school and understanding. For our school, we feel that we're perhaps a hybrid between international and local. I think we're more international on the local side and more local on the international side. But what's key is the quality of the students and your mindset. I think in IB there's a term called international mindedness, which means that it's not whether you're in the middle of a multi-ethnic group or a school full of international students, or it doesn't matter whether you're there or you're in a local school. It's more the mindset, whether you're curious about other cultures, where you're open to it, whether you're open to communication with other cultures. And so, in a nutshell, see for yourself.
Yeah, okay. There's a couple of questions about curriculum, and they're quite similar, so I'll kind of roll them into one. So we know that DBS has IB as well as HKDSE. How do you suggest or guide students as to which one they should be doing?
We're actually, let's keep it, within these four walls. We're also looking into other methods, other approaches besides IB and DSE. For one, for our school, we try to find the best. We try to cater to very different learning styles, and so it's very difficult for me to hear and prescribe IB or DSE. I know in DSE they're trying to refine the process, and IB has their own challenges also, and so and then there's also IAL, AP, and different types of curriculum. I think these types of conversations, we need to, sit down, find a cafe later on, and sit down and really, talk to you, having, gotten to know your children a little bit, then we can share.
So there isn't really one that's better than the other?
There's no magic bullet. I can be very honest with you. Our IB scores are very, very high, but our students sometimes also go through a lot of stress, and so we try to support them as much as we can, and also guide them as much as we can. And so there's no magic bullet. If you want to excel, it always comes with some stress, and so it's a matter of whether the teachers and the parents and the school environment can give them the appropriate support.
Okay, we have a couple of questions about passions. So two questions. How does the school help capable boys discover their passion while also developing the intellectual versatility to excel in multiple areas? And the audience member cites Coleman, Aristo, the ones who've been very high achieving. And there's a kind of related question, which is, what's your advice on helping a young kid to pick up music or sports below the age of 6?
Okay. Well, first of all, about passion. That's why when you ask me about the three words, I mentioned empowerment and freedom. At our school, we try to allow the students to organize clubs and societies and teams that they are interested in. And so in the last couple of years, we have a new team, and they organize themselves, and they compete in cybersecurity competitions.
Wow.
And then there's ethics Olympiad. I still need to explore that. And then students came to me to talk about organizing bagpipes teams. And so you'd be surprised in the campus of about 1,000 students, you'll be surprised how diverse their talents are. And so, yes, you want to give them, perhaps groom them in sports and in music, but also be observant of their interests. Sometimes their passions take them to places that you don't expect. And so we feel our task is to provide a rich soil for them and opportunities for them to explore, because these things go parallel with academic achievements. Of course, there's a time management issue, and we need to help them learn to manage their time better. But there's also a very important element where their passion perhaps takes them to their own very unique individual calling in life that nobody else can replicate. And so we feel that that's important. For 5 or 6 years old, there are many organizations, sports, robotics, music, that have very, very good teachers there. So that warrants another session at the cafe. We'll have another cup of coffee then.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I do remember my boys played mini rugby from the age of 3. They didn't even know which way to run. They just like run. But it gave them something lovely to do on a Sunday morning. It was kind of early for us as parents, but we did it anyway. And then one of them actually ended up playing rugby in college because he had that background. But it was lovely for them to play a team sport, get to know some kids that were not from their school, be active and learn a sport.
Oh, absolutely. I think for parents, besides trying our best to guide them, is to really take a look at what they're interested in and where their interest takes them. I was just talking to one of the parents this morning. He asked me, when did we start our handball team at the school? And I said, well, maybe 20 years ago. I'm not sure. We didn't deliberately want it to start a handball team, but some of the students came up and said, we'd like to head towards that direction. Can you allow us to, form a team? And just a few days ago, several students came to me and asked if they could start a pickleball team. I said, okay, we'll find a teacher for you. In terms of logistics, we'll try to find the right design for your uniform. If you need a captain, you need to travel over, we need to appoint a captain. All these things, we'll try to guide you along. But you take the initiative, you start something, and we'll try to support it.
Wonderful. So you're always evolving.
Always evolving.
Yeah, that's important. A lovely question here. How does DBS community help balance the mental well-being of boys with that demanding, strong warrior culture, especially at a very young age? And we know that boys are under a lot of pressure. They're sometimes not encouraged to express their emotions or to show weakness.
Yes.
So how do you balance that?
Yes, definitely. That's an excellent question. I can't say we're 100% successful with that. There's a lot that go into it. I mentioned a while before about looking after their well-being. And so parents, teachers, they go through training on that. We also know that there's the part about grit and resilience. And so, like I mentioned, there's always this tension there. When do I let them continue? When do I really hold them back? The teachers, they need to be very perceptive. And so teachers, they come together, they discuss about the students quite a bit. So there are different degrees of struggles, but everybody has, every single one of us go through struggles. Every one of us in this room, like you mentioned, your children. So we try to be as attentive as possible. We try to walk with them. And you made a very good point. Boys find it less direct in terms of expressing their emotions. And so we're trying to find exercises for them. One, to point out their emotions. Two, have time to breathe and have mindfulness exercises daily. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't know it. It's embedded in the culture. And so 3, we try to enforce and uphold that brotherhood, whether they're students here or beyond. And so we try to have this trifold approach to upholding our students. It's not an easy path for them. Growing up is very, very difficult, very challenging, but we want to be there to walk with them every step of the way.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, we have got another question about AI. So in this era where AI is advancing at an incredible speed, how should we best prepare young children for the future? And what advice would you give to parents? I'm thinking of when my kids were in high school, they said, we have to prepare for the jobs of the future. At that time, it was coding. Nobody needs coding anymore because AI does it for you. So how would you answer this?
Yeah, that's coding, and then that's prompting, and then it's something else now. I think, first of all, back to what we discussed about the balance between, screen time, utilizing AI to help us improve, but at the same time, being mindful of human interaction. That part is essential still. We need to help them develop the curiosity because things are uncertain in the future. And so they must, if this door closes, they have to have the resilience and the curiosity to open the other door. I think for parents of young children, I think you know best, or at least you go through the struggle every day. You gauge, how much screen time or how much you use AI to help your students. But I think it's definitely, we definitely need to find the right balance there. So advice is that one thing I need to mention is nothing can replace a parent's relationship with the child. And so, yes, AI can help you develop different skills, help you learn, acquire knowledge faster. But critical thinking, the relationship between you and your child, this cannot be replaced.
Okay, here's another good question. As you, Ronnie, interact with schools around the world and you compare them with DBS, what are the gaps you've identified, and do you have a plan to gravitate resources towards those gaps, and what do you need to work on?
What kind of gaps?
I don't know what kind of gaps they mean, but maybe it's in curriculum, or maybe it's in
I see.
things?
Okay. I think if the EDB allows us, because we're a direct subsidy school, right? So which means we're thankful that we have a little bit more resources for what we do. But if we can take in more students, that would be great.
Yeah. Are you limited by a number right now?
We're limited to 246 for the secondary school, and then 150 for primary school. So, gaps, of course, in Hong Kong compared to maybe schools in the mainland, in terms of land, it's quite scarce in Hong Kong.
Yeah, we always have that problem, right?
Yeah.
A question here. I'm a student about to start the IBDP program. How do you find ways to balance high commitment interests like music with the rising difficulties in academics?
Okay, first of all, I'll pray for you. Yeah. There's a certain rigor in IBDP. I know for our boys, it's almost, sometimes they tell me that they feel that there's no gap for them to rest. And so it's very important for parents and the teachers and the school to identify this and find time for them to rest and recover. DP is a very demanding curriculum, but it also equips you very well for college. We always try to encourage our students to pursue the DP along with school life. And so almost none of our students just focus on academics. And as difficult as it is, as challenging as it is, it's actually quite enriching to the boys or to the students. So within IB, they have the CAS element where you have to design your own activities, you have to pursue them. But outside the classroom, outside of the curriculum, because we're a student-led community, a lot of our students are prefects, so they learn about leadership, they learn about grooming the younger generation. They still perform with the music groups. They compete with the sports groups. And so these things, the resilience they learn in sports, they bring it back to the classrooms and it helps them to stay strong. But our responsibility is, on one hand, to empower them, but on the other hand, to also be observant for moments when they're struggling, when they're fatigued, when they have questions in their mind. Then we hope that we're there for them in those moments.
Ronnie, well, I'm going to. I left this till last. This question has been on the iPad for a while, and we're coming towards the end of our time. But I think it's a very meaningful question, which is, Principal Cheng, what things are you most proud of or regretful about?
proud of. Perhaps I can share with you. So this is my 13th year as principal, and before that I was vice principal, deputy headmaster, and then teacher. And so one of the things I miss a lot is when I was a teacher, I have direct contact with the students. So how they behave in the classroom, what they're doing in life, who they're dating, who got dumped. I know all these things, and I know them in a very close way, and I miss that a lot. And in the past, because I was involved in debate, in tennis, in music, we're in a lot of, what was I going to say? In a lot of competitions. And of course, doing well in these competitions are precious. I'm not going to discredit competitions at all because it has its value. But I think through the years, I realized that, seeing them grow up, seeing them graduate, seeing them graduate from high school, going to college, and then seeing them face different challenges in life, experience different things in life, and then coming back to the Hill and visiting with them, this is the most precious part of my job. And so bringing success is important, but seeing them navigate through life is the most satisfying part of my job. And if you're not involved in education, if you're not involved in investing in people, I encourage you to do so, because the gratification is not monetary, but it's very deep and profound. And so I'd encourage you to do that. Regrets, I like to play more tennis. I like to be a better tennis player. But
Maybe after this you can go play some tennis. Or you can take up pickleball.
Oh, yes.
All right, well that brings us to the end of our Q&A, and thank you everybody who sent in questions. They were really good questions, and I hope we've offered you some useful insights into what goes on at DBS and the culture of the school and what you could expect. It is definitely one of the most esteemed schools in Hong Kong, and we're very grateful to Headmaster Cheng for taking the time to speak to us and being so personal and candid.
Thank you, Karen. Thank
Yeah.
you, Ange. Thank you,
Thank
Regina.
you.
Thank you all for spending the afternoon here. Thank you.
All right, you can take a seat and I'll close.